At my husband's funeral, my own daughter burst in, accusing me of hiding money and calling me selfish, all while grieving. She then declared she wouldn't attend or ever return. I simply stood there, silenced by secrets older than she was. You won't believe what truly happened next. Like, share, and let us know where you are listening from to hear my full story. The heavy scent of lilies and sorrow hung in the air, a thick blanket muffling the world outside the funeral home's quiet parlor. Eleanor, a woman of 60 years, sat with her hands clasped tightly in her lap, her gaze fixed on the closed casket. Arthur, her Arthur. He lay within, finally at peace, a serenity etched onto his features that had been so rarely present in his tumultuous life. 35 years of marriage, a tapestry woven with threads of love, struggle, compromise, and a profound, silent burden that only she knew. Each thread felt heavier now, pulling at her soul. The funeral director, a kind man named Mr. Henderson, had just offered his condolences for the third time and excused himself, promising to check on the catering. The door clicked shut, leaving Eleanor in the solemn quiet, a moment she cherished for its fleeting sense of solitude. But the peace was shattered almost instantly. The door burst open again, not with Mr. Henderson's measured return, but with a violent shove. Chloe, her daughter, stood framed in the doorway, her usually neat brown hair disheveled, her eyes blazing with an anger that shocked Eleanor to her core. She looked like she had run a marathon, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The black dress she wore was crumpled, as if she had slept in it. "Mom, we need to talk now." Chloe's voice, sharp and raw, sliced through the reverent silence, an insult to the memory of the man lying before them. Eleanor flinched, her carefully constructed composure threatening to crack. This was not the time, not the place. "Chloe, darling, please. Not here. Not now," Eleanor pleaded, her voice barely a whisper, a stark contrast to her daughter's ferocity. She tried to rise, to embrace her, to somehow placate the storm that was brewing, but Chloe took a step back, her hands balled into fists. "No, it is now," Chloe spat, her eyes narrowed. "I know about the money, Mom. I know you've been hiding it." The words hit Eleanor like a physical blow. The air rushed from her lungs. Hiding money? What could she possibly mean? Her mind raced, desperately searching for a rational explanation. "Hiding what money, Chloe? What are you talking about? My conversations with the lawyer have been strictly about Arthur's will, managing his estate. There's nothing hidden." Her denial felt weak, even to her own ears. It was true in a way. She hadn't hidden money in the way Chloe probably had imagined, not cash under the mattress. But the truth was far more complicated, far more damning. Chloe scoffed, a bitter, humorless sound. "Don't pretend, Mom. Don't play dumb. Do you know what I've been going through? Do you know what kind of financial hole I'm in because of student loans? I'm drowning, Mom, absolutely drowning. And here you are putting on this extravagant funeral, an open casket, lilies everywhere, a soloist, all the trimmings. Do you have any idea how much this costs?" She gestured wildly around the room, her voice rising with each word. "Dad's insurance policy alone was worth $50,000. $50,000, and you're telling me there's no money? That this is all we have?" Eleanor felt a wave of shame wash over her, followed by a surge of defensive anger. "Chloe, your father deserved a beautiful farewell. This was important. He was your father. And the insurance money, it's going towards this, towards settling other matters." Her words sounded hollow, even to her own ears. She knew the funeral was expensive, perhaps overly so, but she had felt a desperate need to provide Arthur with a dignity in death he had rarely afforded himself in life. It was a way to make amends, a desperate, silent plea for forgiveness she couldn't articulate. Chloe's gaze hardened, piercing through Eleanor's weak excuses. "Protection, Mom? Is that what you call it? Protecting me by letting me struggle for years, by letting me take out loan after loan, while you sat on some secret stash?" She took another step closer, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, though the intensity had not lessened. "That's not protection, Mom. That's selfishness. Pure, unadulterated selfishness." "Selfishness?" Eleanor's voice cracked, and a deep, unfamiliar anger flared within her. How dare Chloe accuse her of that? How dare she, who knew nothing of the silent battles Eleanor had fought for decades, for her family, for her daughter? You have no idea, Chloe. Yeah. You have no idea what your father and I went through, what our marriage was like, what I protected you from. The words were out before she could stop them, laced with a bitterness she usually kept carefully locked away. Chloe's eyes widened, a flicker of something akin to fear, or perhaps confusion, replacing some of the anger. Then tell me, Mom. Tell me the truth. Don't you think I deserve to know? What is it? What have you been keeping from me all these years? Eleanor stared at her daughter, her heart a raw, bleeding wound. The truth, the real truth. It was a monstrous thing, too heavy, too ugly, too deeply entrenched in the fabric of their lives to be unraveled here, now beside Arthur's coffin. Decades of secrecy, built brick by painful brick, now formed an impenetrable wall around her. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. The words lodged in her throat, choked by the weight of her past. How could she explain? How could she begin to tell the story of a marriage that was not what it seemed? Of choices made out of desperation? Of a secret so profound it had shaped every single day of her adult life? Chloe watched her face a mask of disappointment and renewed fury as Eleanor remained silent. A long, agonizing moment stretched between them, filled only by the oppressive scent of lilies and the ghost of unspoken words. Finally, Chloe shook her head slowly, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek, but it was a tear of anger, not sorrow. I can't do this anymore, she stated, her voice devoid of emotion now, chilling in its finality. I can't pretend everything is okay. I can't look at you. I won't attend this funeral, and I won't be coming back. With that, Chloe turned abruptly, her black dress swirling around her. The door clicked shut, this time softly, leaving Eleanor alone once more, not just with Arthur's peaceful face, but with the gaping wound Chloe had just ripped open and the echoing silence of her daughter's definitive departure. The weight of secrets had just become immeasurably heavier. 3 weeks. 3 weeks had dragged by since Arthur's funeral, since Chloe had stormed out of the parlor, leaving behind a chasm far deeper than the one Gree had already carved. The lilies had wilted, the condolences had ceased, but the silence in Eleanor's house was louder than ever. Each day was a battle against the overwhelming quiet, a desperate attempt to fill the void left by 2 significant departures. Eleanor had tried. Oh, how she had tried. Her phone log was a testament to her futile efforts. Dozens of calls to Chloe, all routed to a generic voicemail message that offered no comfort. She had driven past Chloe's apartment in the city countless times, hoping for a glimpse, a sign. But the windows remained dark, the curtains drawn. Eventually, she'd called Mrs. Lee, Chloe's elderly landlord, under the guise of checking in. Mrs. Lee, bless her nosy heart, had quickly revealed her own concerns about Chloe's whereabouts in the 2 months of overdue rent. She just vanished, Eleanor. Such a lovely girl. I hope she's all right. The words had chilled Eleanor to the bone. The house, once a sanctuary, now felt like a tomb. Every object held a memory of Arthur, a reminder of the life they had built, or perhaps endured. The silent rooms were unbearable. So Eleanor found herself driving, aimlessly at first, just to escape the oppressive quiet. She'd drive through familiar streets, past old haunts, her mind a whirlwind of what-ifs and unspoken regrets. One afternoon, a particularly gray and melancholic day, her meandering drive took her down a forgotten industrial road on the outskirts of town, a place she hadn't visited in years. Tucked behind a dilapidated, boarded-up Denny's, a flash of familiar blue caught her eye. It was Chloe's beat-up Honda Civic. Her heart lurched, a mixture of hope and dread seizing her. The car looked different. It was coated in a layer of grime, far dirtier than she ever allowed it to be. The windows, usually crystal clear, were now obscured by makeshift coverings. Old towels, a ripped blanket, newspaper taped haphazardly. Bags, an assortment of backpacks and plastic shopping bags, were piled precariously on the back seat, visible even through the partial coverings. A chill ran down Eleanor's spine. This was not a car parked for a quick errand. This was a home. Eleanor pulled her own car over a short distance away, her breath catching in her throat. She got out slowly, her legs feeling strangely heavy, and approached the Honda with cautious steps, as if walking into a fragile dream. As she drew nearer, she heard a soft murmur, then saw movement in the driver's seat. Chloe was inside, hunched over, sharing what looked like the last bite of a sandwich. But she wasn't alone. Two scruffy, medium-sized dogs were nestled beside her, their tails thumping softly against the seat, their eyes fixed on the remaining crumbs in Chloe's hand. One was a wiry terrier mix with intelligent brown eyes and floppy ears. The other, a stockier bulldog mix, a patchwork of tan and white. Eleanor stopped a few feet away, unable to speak, the sight twisting her gut. This was her daughter, her bright, ambitious, once successful daughter, reduced to this. Chloe, who had always prided herself on her independence, her meticulous planning, her upward trajectory, was living in her car, sharing her meager meal with stray dogs behind an abandoned diner. Her face, framed by unwashed hair, was gaunt, the elegant lines of her cheekbones now sharp, almost skeletal. Dark circles bruised the skin beneath her eyes, speaking of endless, sleepless nights. Chloe looked up then, alerted by Eleanor's presence. Her eyes, usually so vibrant, were dull with shame and exhaustion. She froze, the sandwich half raised to her lips. The boys, sensing the tension, looked up too, their heads cocked. "Mom," Chloe said quietly, her voice raspy, barely a whisper. There was no anger now, only a profound weariness. "What are you doing here?" Eleanor found her voice, though it trembled. "What am you doing here, Chloe? What is this? Why are you living in your car?" The questions tumbled out, urgent, desperate. Chloe sighed, a long, shaky exhale that seemed to deflate her further. "What do you think, Mom? I couldn't make rent. Not for 2 months. Mrs. Lee finally kicked me out. I'm homeless." The admission hung in the cold air, stark and brutal. Eleanor's gaze swept over her daughter again, noting the thinness, the dark smudges under her eyes, the faded, ill-fitting clothes. A wave of guilt, sharp and potent, crashed over her. She thought of Chloe's passionate accusations at the funeral, the desperate pleas for help she must have made in her own way, which Eleanor, blinded by her own long-held secrets and defenses, had dismissed as mere complaints. "Oh, Chloe," Eleanor whispered, her heart aching. She reached out, wanting to touch her daughter, to offer comfort, but Chloe flinched back slightly, a ghost of her former anger flickering in her eyes. "Hi, Mom," Chloe said, a bitter edge to her voice. "Remember how you made me feel like garbage for asking for help? For even daring to suggest you might have been hiding something?" The words, though quiet, were daggers. Eleanor didn't respond directly. Instead, her eyes fell on the terrier mix, who had started to tentatively wag his tail, sensing a slight shift in the atmosphere. She slowly knelt down, extending a hand. The Yihang, a scruffy bundle of tan and white fur, hesitated for a moment, then leaned into her touch, his tail thumping a little harder. "What's his name?" Eleanor asked, her voice softer now, her fingers gently stroking the dog's coarse fur. "That's Buddy," Chloe replied, the bitterness in her voice softening slightly as she watched her mother interact with the dog. "And that's Princess," she added, nodding towards the bulldog mix, who was now tentatively sniffing Eleanor's shoes. "Buddy and Princess." Eleanor smiled faintly, a genuine smile that hadn't graced her face in weeks. "Where did you find them?" Chloe shrugged, looking away, her gaze drifting to the empty road. "Out here, wandering around. They were starving. Couldn't leave them." She paused, then added, her voice barely audible. "They needed someone to take care of them." The irony was not lost on Eleanor. Her daughter, homeless and destitute, was taking care of 2 stray dogs, providing them with a refuge she herself desperately lacked. It was a mirror of her own unspoken plea, a silent indictment of Eleanor's inability to protect her own child. The secrets felt heavier than ever, pressing down on her, threatening to crush her. As Eleanor stroked Buddy's scruffy fur, a profound realization had dawned upon her. Here, in the squalor of a forgotten parking lot, with 2 hungry strays as her only companions, Eleanor saw the true Chloe, not the angry, accusing daughter from the funeral, nor the ambitious, driven woman she thought she knew. This was Chloe, stripped bare, compassionate, instinctively caring for the vulnerable, even when she herself was utterly broken. The image of her daughter sharing a meager sandwich with the buns, prioritizing their hunger over her own, twisted a knot in Eleanor's stomach. Chloe, this is unbearable, Eleanor finally managed, her voice thick with emotion. She straightened up, looking at her daughter, her gaze pleading. You can't live like this. Come home with me, please. You and the dogs, both of you. Chloe shook her head slowly, her eyes fixed on some distant point beyond the abandoned Denny's. No, Mom, I can't. Why not? Eleanor pressed, confusion mingling with her despair. It's your home. My home. You wouldn't be alone. Chloe finally met her mother's gaze, and in her eyes Eleanor saw a deep-seated pain that transcended her current homelessness. Because I can't go back to walking on eggshells, Chloe said, her voice flat, devoid of the earlier anger, replaced by a quiet, cutting resignation. Eleanor frowned. Walking on eggshells? What are you talking about? A vague, unsettling memory flickered at the edges of her consciousness, a ghost of her own past, but she couldn't grasp it. Chloe offered a bitter, humorless laugh. You wouldn't understand. Try me, Eleanor urged, her voice firm despite the tremor in her hands. She sank down onto the cracked asphalt curb beside the car, not caring about the dirt or the chill. She had to understand. For Chloe, for herself, for all the silent years. Please, Chloe, just explain it to me. Chloe hesitated, her gaze distant, lost in a memory. Do you remember when I was about 8? I spilled grape juice all over Dad's newspaper. The Sunday paper. He was reading it at the kitchen table. Eleanor's breath hitched. Oh, she remembered, vividly. The vibrant purple stains spreading across the crisp newsprint. The sudden, terrifying silence that had fallen over the kitchen before Arthur's roar had erupted, filling the small space with an almost palpable fury. He had thrown the stained newspaper across the room, cursing, his face contorted with rage. Eleanor had rushed to Chloe, pulling her close, trying to shield her trembling body from her father's wrath, whispering reassurances, cleaning up the mess, all while trying to placate Arthur. She had tried to calm him, to soothe Chloe, to make it all disappear. Yes, I remember, Eleanor whispered, her voice tight with the resurgence of that painful memory. She remembered the fear in Chloe's eyes, the way her small body had shaken against her. You rushed in, Mom, Chloe continued, her voice low. You apologized for me. You cleaned up the mess. You told Dad it was just an accident, that I didn't mean it, and then you told me to go to my room and not come out until Dad had calmed down. Chloe paused, taking a ragged breath. You thought you were protecting me, didn't you? From his anger. Eleanor nodded, tears welling in her eyes. I was, darling. I always tried to protect you. But what you actually did, Mom, Chloe said, her voice rising slightly, the pain palpable now, was teach me that Dad's anger was more important than my feelings, that his comfort, his peace, was more important than my existence. It taught me to be small, to be quiet, to disappear so as not to upset him, to anticipate every mood swing, every potential outburst, and to navigate around it rather than confront it. Her voice cracked. I learned to shrink myself, Mom, to make myself invisible so that Dad would be comfortable, so that there would be peace. Do you know how exhausting that is? Eleanor closed her eyes, a wave of profound, agonizing recognition washing over her. Exhausting? Yes. Oh, God, yes. She knew exactly how exhausting it was. She had lived that life for 35 years, shrinking herself, anticipating, placating, disappearing, all to maintain a semblance of peace in her own marriage. She had been so busy protecting Chloe from Arthur, she hadn't realized she was simultaneously teaching her daughter the very same survival mechanism that had trapped Eleanor herself. She had passed on a legacy of fear and self-erasure, mistaking it for protection. A cold dread seeped into Eleanor's bones. This was worse than financial ruin. This was a deeper, more insidious damage. And it followed me, Mom, Chloe continued, oblivious to Eleanor's internal turmoil, her voice tinged with bitter resignation. It followed me into every job interview, every presentation, every interaction. I could never advocate for myself. I couldn't be assertive. I was always worried about upsetting someone, about making waves, about not being nice enough. She reached into the pile of bags in her back seat and pulled out a crumpled envelope. Remember how proud I was of my job? The marketing firm? I thought I had finally broken free. She handed Eleanor a letter. Eleanor took it, her fingers trembling as she unfolded the official document. It was a termination letter, dated 3 months ago. Her heart sank further. The reasons cited were vague, couched in corporate speak. Lack of initiative, difficulty asserting leadership, failing to meet expectations in a collaborative environment. But Eleanor read between the lines, hearing Chloe's words echo in her mind. Not assertive enough, too worried about upsetting someone, shrinking herself. Eleanor looked up, her eyes burning with unshed tears. Chloe's face was a mixture of shame and anger, her gaze unwavering. You kept telling me you were protecting me, Mom, all my life. But from what? From living a full life? From having a voice? From having a home? Her voice broke again. How is this protection? Mom, how is any of this protection? The questions hung in the air, heavy and damning. Eleanor finally understood. She hadn't protected Chloe from poverty, not truly. She had protected her from Arthur. And in doing so, she had inadvertently taught her daughter to fear her own voice, to suppress her own needs, to prioritize others' comfort over her own well-being. She had instilled in Chloe the very qualities that had now left her homeless, struggling, and heartbroken. The weight of her secrets, the full, devastating impact of her choices, settled upon her, crushing her beneath their immense burden. The silence between them stretched, thick with unspoken pain and newly unearthed regrets. Eleanor sat on the cold curb, the termination letter crumpled in her hand, the full weight of her failures pressing down on her. She had thought she was protecting Chloe, shielding her from the worst of Arthur's volatile nature, but she had merely taught her daughter to replicate her own survival mechanisms, creating a new kind of cage. Chloe finally broke the silence, her voice soft but firm, cutting through the haze of Eleanor's self-recrimination. Mom, I need to tell you something. She reached out, her fingers cool and hesitant, and took Eleanor's trembling hand, intertwining their fingers. Eleanor looked up, her vision blurred by tears. Chloe's eyes were filled with a deep, sorrowful understanding, a wisdom beyond her years, a wisdom born of quiet observation and unspoken trauma. I know about the bruises, Mom, Chloe said, her voice barely a whisper. I know Dad hurt you. I've always known. Eleanor's world stopped. The rusty gears of denial, which she had meticulously oiled and maintained for decades, ground to a halt. The carefully constructed facade of her life, the one she had painstakingly built to protect Chloe, to protect herself, shattered into a million pieces around them. Her breath caught in her throat. You knew. The words were a choked gasp, almost unintelligible. How could she have known? Eleanor had been so careful, so meticulously careful. Chloe squeezed her hand gently. As I got older, I started to notice patterns, Mom. After Dad's bad days or after one of his moods, you'd suddenly start wearing long sleeves, even in summer, or turtlenecks when it wasn't cold. You'd wear more makeup. There was always an excuse, wasn't there? I bumped into the counter. I tripped on the stairs. I fell over the dog. But the bruises, they were always in the same places. Your arms, your neck, sometimes your face, and they weren't clumsy bruises, Mom. They were, fingerprints. Eleanor felt a suffocating wave of shame and grief. The years of hiding, the elaborate makeup routines, the whispered excuses, the constant vigilance. All of it had been for nothing. Chloe had seen it. Her own daughter, the child she had tried so desperately to shield, had carried this terrible knowledge alone, in silence. The realization was a fresh, agonizing wound. Why? Eleanor asked, the word ripped from her throat. Why didn't you ever say anything? Why didn't you ask? Chloe looked away, her gaze fixed on the dirty pavement. Because I was scared, Mom. Scared of what would happen if I did. Scared it would get worse for you. Scared you would leave. If you left, who would take care of me? Who would protect me from him? The last vestiges of Eleanor's carefully guarded composure crumbled. She had never wanted this, never wanted Chloe to see, to know, to carry such a burden. She had convinced herself that ignorance was bliss, that by enduring in silence, she was somehow safeguarding her child's innocence. Instead, she had condemned Chloe to a different kind of pain, a silent, corrosive fear. "Oh, my darling," Eleanor choked out, tears streaming down her face. "I never wanted you to know, never." Chloe finally turned back to her own eyes glistening. "But I did see it, Mom. I saw all of it. I saw you flinch when he raised his voice, even when he wasn't yelling at you. I saw you make yourself small, just like I had learned to do. I saw the way you walked around him, like he was a ticking bomb." Chloe paused, a distant look in her eyes, as if reliving a memory. "I remember my 16th birthday party. We had it in the backyard. Everyone was there. All my friends, some family. It was perfect. We were all laughing, playing music. You had bought me that beautiful cake." Her voice softened for a moment, remembering the fleeting joy. "Then someone accidentally knocked over a potted plant near the patio door. Just a little clay pot, dirt spilled everywhere." Eleanor remembered the scene with crystal clarity. The sudden hush, Arthur's face darkening instantly, his jaw clenching. She had sprung into action, grabbing Chloe and her friends, shooing them inside, insisting it was too cold or too noisy, all to get them away from the impending storm. She had stayed behind, on her knees, frantically sweeping up the dirt and shattered pottery, her heart pounding, her words tumbling out in a torrent of apologies and reassurances to Arthur, who stood over her, breathing heavily. "I got everyone inside," Chloe continued, her voice trembling. "But I didn't go to my room. I stood at the kitchen window watching you. I saw Dad bend down, not to help you but to grab your arm. He wasn't hitting you, not then. But I saw you wince, Mom. I saw the pain flash across your face, and then I saw you compose yourself, force a smile, and pretend everything was fine." Eleanor sobbed openly now, the shame and the agony almost too much to bear. Later that night, Chloe went on, her voice raw. "After everyone had left, I found you in the laundry room. You were crying, quietly. And I knew, Mom, I knew it wasn't about the plant. It was about Dad. It was about me, about my happiness. That's when I started to understand that my presence sometimes came at the cost of your pain." The truth, so stark and heartbreaking, pierced Eleanor's soul. She suddenly understood why Chloe had stopped asking for things, why she became so self-sufficient, why she often seemed to retreat into herself. Chloe hadn't just learned to shrink herself to avoid Arthur's anger. She had learned that if she was perfect, if she was small, if she caused no trouble, then Eleanor would be safe. It was a child's desperate attempt to protect her protector. Eleanor reached out with her free hand, cupping Chloe's face, her fingers trembling. "Oh, sweetheart, no, that was never your responsibility, never. None of that was ever your fault." Chloe looked at her with a profound sorrow. "But it felt like it, Mom. Every time you made an excuse for him, every time you said he was just stressed or had a bad day, it reinforced that we, his family, were somehow responsible for his anger, that we caused it, that if we were just good enough, quiet enough, perfect enough, he wouldn't hurt you. And if I wasn't enough, then I was failing you too." Eleanor stared into her daughter's eyes, seeing not just a broken woman, but a little girl burdened by an adult's secret, a child who had taken on a weight no child should ever bear. The decades of secrecy, she realized, had not protected Chloe. They had crippled her. The revelation hung heavy in the air, a devastating tapestry woven from shared trauma and silent understanding. If you're finding this story as heartbreaking as I am, please keep watching, and remember to like, share, and subscribe. Your support means the world as I share these deeply personal moments. Eleanor finally understood the devastating ripple effect of her choices. Chloe's homelessness wasn't just about student loans or a difficult job market. It was inextricably linked to the insidious habit of making herself small, of fearing confrontation, of prioritizing others' comfort over her own needs. Eleanor had seen her own reflection in Chloe's struggles, a generational echo of suppressed voice and diminished self-worth. "I always felt like a failure when I had to ask for help, Mom," Chloe admitted, her voice raw, "like I wasn't good enough, strong enough, smart enough to manage on my own. It just confirmed everything I already believed about myself." Eleanor's heart twisted. The thought of Chloe feeling like a failure for needing assistance, needing her mother, was agonizing. And she realized, with a fresh wave of guilt, that her own desperate need to hide money from Arthur, to squirrel away scraps in secret, had inadvertently contributed to Chloe's perception that needing money or help was something shameful, something to feel guilty about. Her secrets had been meant to protect, but they had only bred more shame and insecurity. Chloe looked at her mother, a question still burning in her eyes. "But why, Mom? Why did you have to hide it from him? It was your money too. Wasn't it your family's money?" Eleanor took a deep, shaky breath. The time for half-truths and evasions was long past. Arthur was very particular about money, Chloe. He believed he was the provider, the sole financial controller. He gave me a household allowance each week, a fixed amount, and I had to account for every single penny, every receipt, every grocery item. If I was even a dollar off, if I couldn't explain a purchase to his satisfaction, the interrogations began. The lectures, the accusations. Her voice trailed off, a familiar chill creeping over her. Chloe finished the sentence, her voice quiet but firm. "And then he would hurt you." Eleanor simply nodded, unable to speak. The memories of those terrifying audits flashing through her mind. The humiliation, the fear, the desperate scramble to make the numbers add up, to avoid his wrath. "So the money I told you I was hiding at the funeral?" Eleanor began, struggling to find the right words. "It wasn't a secret fortune in Chloe. It was grocery money. For almost 20 years, I skimmed $5 here, $10 there, sometimes less, just tiny amounts. I had a coffee can hidden in the back of the pantry, tucked away beneath old cookbooks. Every week I'd take out what I needed for groceries, then put a little bit aside." Chloe stared at her mother, her mouth slightly agape, processing the revelation. 20 years, $5 to $10 at a time. The sheer monumental effort of such a silent, clandestine act was staggering. "I had a plan, Chloe," Eleanor continued, her voice heavy with the weight of that long abandoned dream. "When you graduated high school, that was my escape route. I was going to leave Arthur. I had saved almost $8,000 by then. It wasn't much, but it was enough to get a small apartment, to find a part-time job, to finally be free." "What happened?" Chloe asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Why didn't you leave?" Eleanor closed her eyes, a fresh wave of tears pushing past her lids. "Your college tuition, sweetheart. Your scholarships covered most of it. But there was a gap. $12,000. Arthur refused to pay a cent. Said you should have gotten better scholarships or taken out loans, like everyone else. He was proud of you for getting in, but not enough to financially support it. He said it was your burden." Eleanor opened her eyes, meeting Chloe's gaze, her own filled with a deep, complex sorrow. "I couldn't let you carry that burden, Chloe. Not after everything. You deserved that education. You deserved a chance at a better life, a life free from all of this. So I used my escape money. I emptied that coffee can and the small savings account I'd built up, and I paid the tuition. I told Arthur it was money I'd somehow managed to save over the years, specifically for a college fund, a story I knew he'd be proud of. And he was. He was so proud I'd been fiscally responsible." A bitter laugh escaped Eleanor's lips, devoid of humor. And just like that, I was trapped again. Back to zero, starting all over again, $5 and $10 at a time. It took years to rebuild any kind of savings. By the time I had enough to even consider leaving again, you were gone, grown up, living your own life. And I didn't know who I was anymore if I wasn't your mother or his wife. The thought of leaving, of being truly alone, was terrifying. It was too late, I told myself. Eleanor squeezed Chloe's hand. "But listen to me, Chloe. It's not too late now. Arthur's gone. His life insurance policy, it wasn't $50,000, it was $300,000. And there's his pension, which I'll be receiving. I've still been saving since you left. Small amounts, yes, but it adds up. There's money, Chloe, a lot of money." Chloe looked at her mother, a myriad of emotions swirling in her exhausted eyes. Shock, disbelief, a dawning hope, and a lingering resentment. "So," Chloe said slowly, her voice flat, The expensive funeral, all the trimmings, was that part of this newfound freedom? Your way of making up for all those years? The accusation was subtle, but it was there, hovering between them. Eleanor knew she couldn't fully explain the funeral, not yet, not without revealing an even deeper, more complex secret. The vastness of Eleanor's hidden savings and the complicated reasons behind them hung heavy in the air, a final layer of truth peeled back. Chloe's question about the funeral expense, tinged with suspicion, lingered. But before Eleanor could address it, Chloe took a deep, shaky breath, her gaze dropping to her lap. "Mom," she whispered, her voice so faint it was almost lost in the distant hum of traffic. "There's something else I need to tell you." She didn't look up, her fingers nervously pecking at a loose thread on her worn jeans. Eleanor's heart clenched. What more could there possibly be? Her mind raced through every imaginable scenario, each one more dire than the last. She braced herself. Finally, Chloe lifted her head, her eyes brimming with a fragile vulnerability Eleanor hadn't seen since Chloe was a little girl. "I'm pregnant, Mom." The words struck Eleanor with the force of a physical blow. Her breath caught, and for a moment the world spun. Pregnant? Her Chloe? A baby? The news, while joyous in its essence, was delivered in such a desolate context that it twisted into a knot of overwhelming concern. She stared at her daughter, trying to reconcile the image of the once vibrant, career-driven woman with the gaunt, homeless mother-to-be before her. "Pregnant?" Eleanor managed, the word barely audible. How far along are you?" "About 3 months," Chloe replied, her gaze still fixed on her lap. That's why I've been so sick. The morning sickness and the job. I think they suspected, even before I lost it, I was constantly running to the bathroom. It made me look unreliable." 3 months. Eleanor did a quick mental calculation. That meant Chloe had gotten pregnant around the same time Arthur's health had taken a sharp turn for the worse, around the time their lives had begun to unravel in their own separate, painful ways. "The father?" Eleanor asked gently, her voice full of a tenderness she hadn't allowed herself to express in years. "Who is he, Chloe?" Chloe flinched, a shadow passing over her face. "His name is David. We'd been together for about a year. He seemed good, stable." She paused, then scoffed, a dry, bitter sound. "Turns out not so much." Eleanor's grip tightened on Chloe's hand. "What happened? Did he leave you?" Chloe nodded, a single tear escaping and tracing a path down her cheek. "I told him about the baby a few weeks after I found out. I thought he'd be scared, maybe, but excited too. We talked about our future, about kids, about everything. But he just looked at me, not with anger, not even really with fear, just disgust, like I had done something reprehensible. He told me it was my problem to figure out, that he wasn't ready for this, that he didn't want a baby, not with me, not ever." Eleanor felt a cold rage begin to simmer within her. "Did he hurt you, Chloe? Did he lay a hand on you?" The question was sharp, tinged with a familiar protective fury. "Not physically, no," Chloe said, shaking her head. "But Mom, the way he looked at me, like I was a burden, like I was broken. It was worse than being hit sometimes. The way he just shut down, the way he made me feel like I was nothing." Her voice was barely a whisper. "He packed his bags that same night, just left. No explanation, no goodbye, just gone. That's when I really started falling behind on rent. Everything just snowballed." Eleanor pulled Chloe into a fierce embrace, holding her daughter tightly, trying to absorb some of her pain. She stroked Chloe's hair, her own tears mingling with Chloe's. "Oh, my darling girl, my brave girl." "I wanted to tell you, Mom," Chloe murmured into Eleanor's shoulder, her voice muffled. "At the funeral home, when you asked about the money, but I was so angry, so hurt, and so scared. Scared you'd judge me, scared you'd look at me the way he did." Eleanor pulled back slightly, her hands cupping Chloe's face, forcing her to look into her eyes. "Chloe, listen to me. You could never lose my respect. Not ever. You are my daughter, and you are carrying my grandchild. You are stronger than I ever was to face this alone, to survive all of this." I don't feel strong, Mom, Chloe admitted, her voice cracking. I feel like I'm drowning. I've been living in the car for 2 weeks now, since my friend's roommate complained about the dogs. I tried staying with a few friends, but it was too hard with Buddy and Princess. And I couldn't just leave them, Mom. I couldn't. They're just babies who needed someone to care about them. Eleanor looked at the two scruffy dogs who were now nestled against Chloe, offering silent comfort. Buddy nudged Chloe's hand with his wet nose, a low whine rumbling in his chest. And suddenly, another painful truth clicked into place. The dogs. They weren't just stray animals Chloe had rescued. They were what Chloe needed. Someone entirely dependent on her. Someone to care for. Someone to give her a reason to keep going, even when she felt like she had nothing left. Just as Eleanor had once clung to Chloe as her reason, her purpose, her shield against Arthur's darkness. I understand, Chloe, Eleanor said softly, her voice thick with emotion. I really do. I stayed in my marriage for so long, partly to protect you, partly because being your mother, being needed by you, gave me a purpose. It made me feel like I was worth something, like I had a reason to endure. She gripped Chloe's hands tighter. But you're not me, Chloe. You don't have to repeat my mistakes. You don't have to carry this burden alone. You have me, you have this, or you have Button and Princess. We will figure this out, all of us, together. A fragile flicker of hope, so faint Eleanor almost missed it, appeared in Chloe's eyes. It was a long way from the despair that had consumed her, but it was there, a tiny spark in the encroaching darkness. The raw confession of Chloe's pregnancy, the abandonment by David, and Eleanor's promise of unwavering support had broken down the last barriers between them. The fragile spark of hope in Chloe's eyes began to glow a little brighter. Chloe, Eleanor said, her voice firm, resolute. Listen to me closely. You are not alone, and you are not helpless. I have money, real money. I have $57,000 saved up from my own hard work, skimming those pennies over the years. Plus Arthur's life insurance payout was $300,000, not $50,000, and his pension will provide a steady income. This house is paid off. We are financially stable, more than stable. She squeezed Chloe's hand, meeting her gaze with an intensity that left no room for doubt. I have enough money to help my daughter and my grandchild start over, to build a new life, a safe life, without fear or want. Tears streamed down Chloe's face now, not tears of despair, but of profound relief. The impossible weight she had been carrying seemed to lift ever so slightly. But true freedom, Chloe, Eleanor continued, her voice softer, isn't just about money. It's about being seen, being heard, being loved unconditionally. It's about knowing you have someone who will stand by you no matter what. You and this baby, you're my freedom. You're my reason to finally break free from all the fear and the silence. Chloe choked back a sob, pulling Eleanor into another embrace, a fierce, desperate hug that spoke volumes. Oh, Mom, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I'm so scared. What if I'm not a good mother? What if I mess it all up? Eleanor held her daughter tightly, pressing a kiss to her hair. Then we'll learn together, sweetheart. Every single day, we'll make mistakes, both of us, but we'll learn from them. We'll be there for each other. This baby's a new beginning for all of us. I want to build a life with you and this baby. I want us to be the family we never got to be. A real family, built on truth and love, not on secrets and fear. A flicker of concern crossed Chloe's face as she pulled back, wiping her eyes. What about David, Mom? What if he tries to come back? Or what if he tries to claim the baby? The fear in her voice was palpable, a testament to the pain of his abandonment. Eleanor's jaw tightened, a steely glint in her eyes that Chloe had rarely seen. Then we'll deal with it, darling. We'll deal with it together. She paused, then added, no more hiding, no more shrinking. We will face whatever comes head on, but not alone, never alone again. Chloe looked at her mother, a flicker of something new in her eyes. Trust, perhaps, and a burgeoning sense of partnership. Promise me, Mom, she said, her voice soft but firm. Promise me you won't try to handle him alone, that you won't take on all the responsibility. We're a team now, right? We're a team, Eleanor affirmed, squeezing Chloe's hand tightly. Absolutely. A fierce, unwavering team. They drove back to Eleanor's house, a silent understanding passing between them. Dogs, Buddy and Princess, seemed to sense the shift, settling contentedly in the back seat. Moving back in, however, was an awkward dance, a process of unlearning decades of ingrained habits. The house, once a fortress of Eleanor's secrets and Arthur's moods, now felt strangely open, vulnerable. Both women found themselves tiptoeing, speaking in hushed tones almost instinctively. One evening, Eleanor found herself closing a cupboard door with exaggerated care, a habit born of Arthur's explosive reactions to any loud noise. Chloe, who was arranging some of her few belongings in the guest room, now her room, caught her mother's movement. "Mom," Chloe said gently, a small, sad smile on her face. "You don't have to sneak around your own house anymore. You don't have to be afraid of making a sound." "I'm not Dad." Eleanor froze, realizing the truth of Chloe's words. She was still living as if Arthur were there, still walking on eggshells. And in doing so, she was inadvertently making Chloe feel the same way. The ghost of Arthur's presence lingered, shaping their interactions. "You're right," Eleanor sighed, running a hand through her hair. "Old habits die hard, don't they?" "They do," Chloe agreed. "I think we both have some unlearning to do before the baby comes. For the baby." It was a stark reminder that their journey wasn't over. They had cleared the air, but the wounds were deep, and healing would take time, effort, and a conscious dismantling of the survival mechanisms they had both adopted. The next morning, over a quiet breakfast, Eleanor brought up David again. "I've been doing some research, Chloe," she said, pushing a plate of toast towards her daughter. "Family law, paternity rights, child support. I want to make sure you and this baby are protected, legally." Chloe's fork clattered against her plate. "A lawyer, Mom, but the cost. I don't want to drain all your savings, especially with the baby coming." The fear of financial burden, deeply ingrained from her own struggles, resurfaced instantly. Eleanor reached across the table, covering Chloe's hand with her own. "Chloe, listen to me. This is exactly what the money is for, all of it. All those years of scrimping and saving, of putting myself last, of enduring. It was so I could protect you, truly protect you, when the time came. This is not a burden. This is my purpose now, to make sure you and your child have every advantage, every protection. We're getting a good lawyer, no expense spared. This is a new beginning, Chloe, for all of us, and we're going to build it right." The very next day, Eleanor wasted no time. She called the most reputable family law firm in the city and secured an urgent appointment. Within 24 hours, Eleanor and Chloe found themselves sitting across from Olivia Davies, a sharp, empathetic attorney with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. The scent of polished wood and leather filled Olivia's office, a stark contrast to the grimy car Chloe had called home just days before. Olivia listened patiently as Chloe, her voice trembling at times, recounted David's abandonment and her fears for the future. Eleanor sat beside her, a steady hand resting on Chloe's arm, providing silent strength. Once Chloe had finished, Olivia leaned forward, her expression serious. "Chloe, Eleanor, I want to be upfront about the legal landscape here. In our state, biological fathers, even if they're absent or non-supportive during the pregnancy, still have rights. David could theoretically disappear for years, and then, once the child is older, petition the court for paternity and visitation rights. It's not uncommon." Chloe gasped, her face paling. "So he could just walk back into our lives and demand to see Lily May? Even after everything? Even if he's never contributed a cent?" The name Lily May, the one Chloe had tentatively chosen for her unborn daughter, hung in the air, a fragile hope now threatened by legal complexities. "That's a possibility, yes," Olivia confirmed gently. "But there are steps we can take to mitigate that risk and protect you and your daughter. The most crucial thing right now is documentation. Every text message, every email from David, any witnesses to his abandonment, any efforts he makes or doesn't make to contact you, it all needs to be meticulously recorded." Chloe looked overwhelmed, her brow furrowed. "What if he tries to contact me? What should I do?" "If he does, acknowledge it, but do not engage in lengthy conversations or arguments," Olivia instructed. "Keep responses brief and factual. Do not block him, as that could be seen as alienating him. Simply save all communication. If his behavior becomes threatening, harassing, or erratic, we can then move for a protective order. But for now, just document. She then emphasized a critical point. Under no circumstances, without a court order, can you prevent him from seeing his child once paternity is established, or take the child out of state without his consent. That would be considered parental kidnapping, and it would put you in a very difficult legal position. Chloe's head dropped into her hands. This is so much more complicated than I thought it would be. Olivia offered a reassuring smile. It can feel that way, and it's a lot to take in, but you are doing everything right by being proactive. You have strong family support, and crucially, you have the financial resources to protect yourselves. Many women in your situation don't have those advantages. We will build a strong case to ensure the best possible outcome for Lily Mae and for you. Olivia then made another recommendation. Chloe, I also strongly advise you to see a counselor, specifically one who specializes in pregnancy and relationship trauma. Not only will it provide you with crucial emotional support during this challenging time, but their notes can also serve as valuable documentation of your emotional state and the impact of David's abandonment, should we need it in court. As they left Olivia's office, the weight of legal realities settled heavily upon Chloe. She was quieter than usual on the drive home, her gaze fixed on the passing scenery, but Eleanor noticed a subtle difference in her daughter's demeanor. The utter hopelessness seemed to have receded, replaced by a quiet resolve. It's a lot, Chloe finally said, breaking the silence. So many things I never thought about. The idea that he could just appear out of nowhere and demand things. She shivered. Eleanor reached for her hand. But now we know, Chloe. Now we're prepared. We won't be caught off guard. We'll have all our ducks in a row. Chloe turned to her mother, her eyes serious. Promise me, Mom. Promise me again that if he does come back, if he tries anything, we face it together. As a team. No more trying to handle things alone. No more secrets about this. I promise you, Chloe, Eleanor vowed, her voice unwavering. On my life. We are a team. Always. As they drove, Eleanor felt a profound shift. It wasn't just about protecting Chloe anymore, or making amends for past failures. It was about building something new together. A new kind of family founded on honesty, mutual support, and a shared purpose. She felt a lightness in her chest, a sense of empowerment she hadn't experienced in decades. They were not just mother and daughter. They were partners, ready to face the world, not shrink from it. 8 months. 8 months had transformed their lives, turning a desolate parking lot confession into a testament of resilience and newfound love. Eleanor remembered the day as if it were yesterday. After 14 grueling hours of labor, Chloe, exhausted but radiant, had finally pushed. And then, a tiny cry. Eleanor, who had been steadfastly by Chloe's side, holding her hand, whispering encouragement, felt her heart swell to bursting when the nurse placed a tiny bundle into her arms. 6 pounds, 4 ounces of pure, unblemished perfection. Her granddaughter, Lily Mae. Oh, my sweet girl, Eleanor whispered, tears blurring her vision as she gazed at the infant's impossibly small face. Lily Mae yawned, a tiny hand batting at the air. She's been waiting for exactly this moment. Life, once a chaotic storm of secrets and fear, had gradually found a gentle rhythm. Chloe, no longer overwhelmed by despair, had poured her creative energy into freelance graphic design, slowly rebuilding her career from Eleanor's quiet study. Eleanor, in turn, had found a new purpose, volunteering twice a week at the local animal shelter. Her compassion for Buddy and Princess extending to all creatures in need. They had embraced therapy, separately and together, learning to unravel the knots of their past, to identify and unlearn the unhealthy patterns Arthur had imprinted on them both. The house, once a silent mausoleum of fear, now echoed with open conversation, laughter, and the happy barks of Buddy and Princess, who had seamlessly integrated into their lives, becoming Lily Mae's first furry guardians. Eleanor was no longer afraid. She didn't tiptoe. She didn't shrink. She was simply living, fully and authentically, for the first time in decades. One quiet afternoon, as Chloe nursed Lily Mae, she looked at Eleanor, a faint frown on her face. Mom, do you think she looks like David? Eleanor leaned closer, gently stroking Lily May's soft head. No, darling. She looks like herself. And she looks exactly like you did when you were a baby. All that beautiful strength and stubbornness already shining through. She's all Chloe. Eleanor made sure to emphasize this to reassure her daughter that Lily May was hers, wholly and completely. Following Olivia Davies' advice, Chloe had made a thoughtful decision. On Lily May's birth certificate, in the space reserved for the father's name, she had left it blank. It was a conscious act of reclaiming control, of asserting her independence and her vision for her daughter's future. A few weeks after Lily May's birth, Chloe's phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. Her heart pounded as she read the text. Heard you had a baby. We need to talk. It was David. A flicker of the old fear crossed Chloe's face, but then she looked at Eleanor, who met her gaze calmly. Their practice sessions with Olivia had paid off. Eleanor simply nodded, a silent reminder of their rehearsed steps. Document. Don't respond immediately. Remember your support system. Chloe took a deep breath. She didn't let the message fester. She didn't engage emotionally. Instead, she typed a concise, professional response, exactly as they had planned. My attorney, Olivia Davies, will be in touch regarding any matters pertaining to Lily May. She pressed send. The empowerment in that simple act was palpable. 3 days later, Olivia called. David had contacted her. He wanted to voluntarily terminate his parental rights. He was getting married, Olivia explained with a slight roll of her eyes, and his fiancée didn't want any complications from his past. Chloe sagged with relief, a profound exhale that seemed to release months of tension. Yet there was also a pang of sadness. Not for David, but for Lily May, for the connection that would never be, for the absence of a father who simply didn't care enough. Eleanor held Chloe close. When Lily May is older and she asks about her father, Eleanor whispered, we will tell her the truth. That she was wanted, loved, and protected, and that her mother chose to shield her from a father who wasn't worthy of her. 2 weeks later, David signed the papers. He appeared at Olivia's office looking impatient and utterly devoid of emotion. He barely glanced at the documents before scrawling his signature, eager to be rid of the complication. He left as quickly as he arrived, a ghost disappearing into the city. On the drive home, Chloe was quiet, a strange mix of relief and a lingering sorrow settling over her. The chapter was closed, but the pain of a paternal rejection, however deserved, still resonated. Eleanor, however, felt a profound peace. Not the absence of problems, but the certainty that they now had the tools, the support, and the love to handle anything that came their way. The cycle was broken. As they pulled into the driveway, Chloe turned to Eleanor, a soft smile gracing her lips. Mom, I've been thinking. Yes, darling? Eleanor asked, her heart full. Lily May, Chloe began, her voice gaining strength. I want to change her last name to your maiden name, Henderson. She looked at Eleanor, her eyes shining with fierce determination. Emma Rose Henderson. I want her to have a name that represents strength and survival and starting over. A name that reminds her where she came from, the women who fought for her. Eleanor's eyes welled up, tears of pure joy this time. Emma Rose Henderson, a name that carried the weight of their past, but also the boundless promise of their future. A little girl who would grow up wanted, loved, and cherished, never having to be small, never having to walk on eggshells. Emma Rose Henderson, Eleanor repeated, her voice thick with emotion. It sounds like the beginning of something new, Chloe. The most beautiful new beginning. And in that moment, Eleanor felt an absolute certainty that everything, finally, truly would be okay.